Thanks for chatting with us today about your book, Magic of Deceit, which I really enjoyed, by the way. Why don't we start this out by you telling us a little bit about yourself? I see you have a PhD.
Yes. So yeah, I guess we'll do a
Cool.
little bio thing. Sure. So yeah, I am JG Gardner. By day, I am a microbiologist. So I lead a small research team looking at ways to treat fungal infections. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
kind of the day job. And then at nights and on weekends, I think a lot about magic, wizards, and dragons. I have written two fantasy novels that were published by a small press, Apprentice House Press. And I've written a third one that I've been working with a developmental editor on. And so that's going to go as a submission to Apprentice House here with its submission cycle this February. So there's two in the books and hopefully a third one coming in the next year or so.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Looking forward to that. So we have The Magic of the Sea, which I read, like I said, and I absolutely enjoyed. What's your second book?
So the second one is called The Path from Regret, and so this is the convoluted story, the story of that. When I had originally thought I wanted to write fantasy novels, I had an idea that I wanted there to be a hard magic system. Wizards were the main characters, and I was going to really follow them as people, as characters, not as mentors, not as side characters, but as the main drivers of the narrative. I
Hmm.
had an idea there's going to be four books, and I wrote outlines of all four of those books, but some outlines were more fleshed out than others. And it turned out that what is going to be quote unquote book three of the series, that was the book that was outlined the most. And it was the one I was most excited about. So that's the book that I actually wrote first. And people said, well, how are you going to write book three first and have it all make sense? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And my idea was that each book it's not a sequential timeline. So normally when you think of a trilogy, all of the acts, they butt up against one another for the narrative.
Right.
The way that I've written things is that each book of the four books of the series is a single event, a significant event in a wizard's life throughout a decade. So the Magic of Deceit is when that character is 40. The path from, I'm sorry, the Magic of Deceit is the book that you read is when the character is 20. The
20.
path from regret is when he's 40. The book that I'm working with my editor now is when he's 30. And then the last book in this series is when he's 50. So it's going to be 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So you could jump in at any place because then you're going to get a decade slice of that character's life, but
That's
there's not any continuum between the two. So you could jump in anywhere and then move forward or backward. That's how I justify it.
really
Um,
neat. That's
but
really cool. Like that's pretty
yeah,
unique.
so we'll see if it works. The reviews that I've gotten, because again, I published the Path from Regret first, is people read it and they said this is pretty good, but, and there's always the but in the review,
Right.
saying that something should have come before. And I guess that's true. And so now there are people that are reading the Magic of Deceit. They're saying, "Oh, this seems like the ground floor where the story actually starts," and that's true. So then you can work your way and kind of go sequentially. So I'm working on what is, I guess, ostensibly book two right now. The other question people ask is, well, you've got book one and book three. Well, can I go from one to three? And is there going to be am I going to be confused? No, you're not. So the idea is that, again, since this is a major event in a decade, going
Mhm.
from 20 to 40, you can kind of skip over his 30s because each book is self-contained. There might be references to things
Right.
that came before, but it's not dependent upon what's happening in that current story.
Oh,
So
cool.
you could absolutely jump. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say there could have been things mentioned in the Magic of the Sea that would be like kind of like references to when he was 20. I mean, he is 20 in this. I meant the other way around. In fact,
Right. When he's
regret.
40 going back. Yes,
Yes, there we go.
absolutely.
That's what I
That's
meant.
right. The idea is that I really want it to be that I understand that people don't like long series. And for people that do read series, there's lots of debates in the community about a author starts a series and there's a 5 year, 10-year gap
Right.
between novels. Is anyone going to finish? A lot of times independent authors or small press authors like myself, they'll have two or three series going concurrently, so they're jumping between them, so there's
Right.
gaps. So I don't personally like long series, so I wanted to write it in such a way that each book could be a standalone experience, so that people that are interested in the stories that I have to tell could just pull one off the shelf, read it, and if they want it to be done, they could be done. They're not waiting for some cliffhanger to be resolved.
That's awesome. I love that. That is really unique. That's really, really interesting. I really like that. How long did it take you to come up with that idea that you wanted to do that kind of a series?
No, that's a great question. I knew so the main character Thorn. I knew what his story was going to be. I've been thinking about that for years and years. I knew where he was going to start. I knew what each kind of major event was going to be, and then I was asking myself, well, how can I string them together as kind of the narrative where the stories kind of butt up against one another, volume one, volume two, volume three. And I
Mhm.
could never make it work because the events that I thought were important for his life were decades apart. And when you
Right.
think about, you just as a person, a lot of times you think, okay, what are the major milestones or the major events in my life? There's huge gaps in years between things that you think are real milestones for your life. Going to school, graduating from high school, going to college, getting married, getting your first car, whatever you is important to you. Those are usually not click, 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 right one
Right.
and together. There's spaces of time, and
Right.
so in that space of time, a lot of that can kind of be pushed aside and you focus on those big events. And so that was the kind of the idea is how can I tell this story of this one character, but focus on just the big events of their lives? And so the best solution was it's going to be focused on a decade.
That's cool. So it's like you got rid of the filler episodes.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So if you're going to be thinking about like, Naruto, it's
Oh my
just the plot ones.
Bleach.
Yeah, or Bleach, sure. Any of those ones where there's or Dragon Ball Z,
Oh,
so any
yeah.
of those where I don't have an episode where someone's just powering up for 30 minutes right
Oh
before
my
they throw the first punch. So
God.
that's gone. It's yeah, all killer, no filler. Hopefully,
No, it was great. I loved the pace of it. I thought everything the pace was great. I was into it. It's very it kept me engaged in the story. And I really liked Thorne and I is it Essen? Is that how you
Essen,
Essen?
yes,
Yeah.
Essen,
I
yep.
really enjoyed Thorne and Essen. Their dynamic was great. I loved how they started out and how they ended up. And I'm trying not to spoil things for those who are interested in reading your books. Just regarding the book and even character-wise, what's been like the best, your favorite part about the process of writing the series?
The thing that I love talking about the most are the things that, which turns out to be what people are least interested in. I love talking about the development of the magic system, talking about the rules of the magic system, talking about how alchemy works, talking about the archive, which is the research institution. It's not a school, and I make a I try very, very hard to emphasize this is not a school. This is if you took an apothecary's workbench, if you took a polymer company like 3M, if you
Mhm.
took the engineering department of a university and you took magic and you put it in a blender, that's the archive. So it's very much a research, it's an R&D place in a fantasy setting. And I love talking about all of those things. Almost always when people want to talk about the books, they don't care about that at all. What they care about is just like you said, they care about Thorne's relationship with Rihanna, Thorne's relationship with Essen, Thorne's relationship with Mirtand, how Thorne as a character interacts with protagonist, antagonist, side characters, why he does many times the right thing for the wrong reason. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he kind of both? What does his moral compass look like? People want to talk about those things, which
Right.
sure, I agree. I think those are interesting. I tried to very, very hard make him be a dynamic and realistic character.
Mhm.
But the stuff that gets me all charged up is talking about the magic and the alchemy, and almost no one almost never talks about that stuff.
I mean, some magic systems out there can be very convoluted and
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. Yes.
So
Yeah.
it can get it, I think it's one of those things that it's an acquired taste almost to
For
some
certain.
people. But on the other side of that, what's been like some of the biggest challenges you faced, just whether it's writing the one book, the series, a character, what's been the biggest challenge so far?
This always makes me laugh because it always confuses people when I give the answer. The thing that's challenged me the most is time and space. And what do I mean by that is I'm
I
really
get it.
terrible at gauging how
I
long it's going to take to do something,
hmm
how far you have to travel. And that's because in the world that I've created, it's a perfect equinox, 15 hours day, 15 hours night. So it's not it's a different planet. It's not Earth, but time is a little bit longer than normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a planet where its elliptical path is perfectly vertical, which means there's no tilting of the planet, meaning there's no seasons. So you have no seasons and you have a perfect equinox every day. So what does that mean? What does a day's travel look like?
Right.
Or if I start a chapter and people are eating breakfast and then they do some stuff and I start a new chapter, what time is it? Where are they doing stuff? So I really struggle with how long is it going to take a character to do an action or travel to a place. And so kind of going back to what I was saying before, I can bore you to tears talking about magic and alchemy and the archive. But if you tell me, how far is it from these two towns? I have no idea.
No, I completely get that. I suffer from that in real life to begin with. I feel that on a spiritual level. But that's challenging. I'm also writing my own book. I've been working on it since I was 14, so it's been quite some time in the process of finalizing things. But it's that and descriptions are the two things that just oh
Yep.
kill me.
Well, and then that's something that you could talk to a lot of fantasy folks about in terms of kind of the old school way of writing, where you can have paragraphs or even pages of description of a landscape, a meal,
Right.
an outfit, and while people love that for the kind of the classics, that's not what modern readers want. They want things that are
Correct.
dynamic, where there's dialogue and action and things changing and moving. And so that's been something that I've been really kind of aware of. Like, there's a lot of the old school stories that I love, but I don't want to read 3 paragraphs of what
Right.
this mountain looks like. So I want to, what are they doing on the mountain?
Right.
So that idea of trying to blend some of the, or pay homage to kind of the classic old school stuff, but give it a take where people actually want to read the book is
Right.
where I'm at right now.
Where people are actually going to read and they don't have to reread the same sentence because they
Yes.
start to zone out because it's just a description.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I find that balance is tricky. You're right. Who's your favorite character, would you say?
And this is going to be true for you ask me any book or movie or genre. I always love side characters. The main characters, they're fully realized. You know their wants, their needs, that you follow them all the way through. And so that's cool. But the characters that I love are the side characters, because if they're done well, they have just enough to make them really interesting that you want to know more.
Mhm.
So for me, the side character that I really have an affinity for, I'm he's a character that I think is really fun, is Amos in
Mhm.
the Magic of Deceit. He's a corsair. He's a pirate. He's got all the characteristics of a pirate. He smokes, he drinks, he swears, he's violent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's got these really admirable traits. He's incredibly loyal. He's good to his crew. He has this very strong moral compass. He doesn't apologize for who he was or who he is, and he makes decisions that are very consistent, kind of with his character. And so I like those meaty side characters that have really interesting aspects to them, where you think, I don't know if they're ever going to be main character potential, but boy, I want to know a little bit more about them.
Right, right. Essen is my favorite. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed him. I liked his path.
Yep.
He was very nicely written.
Well,
I
thank
really
you.
enjoyed him. Are there characters that will be repeating, like
Yes.
popping up here and there in your
Yes. Yep.
series?
So you're going to see Thorn and Rihanna across all 4 books.
Okay.
You will see Amos again. You will see Essen again. You will see Mirtans again.
I really like your characters. They're each their own person. Like
Yes.
they're not just your NPC that stays in the background. Like they could, I'm pretty sure you fully fleshed them out.
I didn't, I'm glad that came out, because that's what I
Yeah.
really tried to do. Because I don't write character profiles, which I know a lot of authors do, but I've worked very hard at trying to answer the question, what do they want? But then more importantly, why do they want it? Because I use the answers to those 2 questions to drive how they behave. And a
Right.
lot of times when I'm giving it to beta readers or people that are reviewing some of my drafts, if a character falls flat, or is behaving weirdly, it's because I have not answered one of those questions well. What do they want and why do they want it? So I use those really as guideposts. And if I do a good job, then like you say that the characters then they have their own personality
Right.
and they really kind of pop off the page.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's a really nice technique. It's a nice way to like flesh them out.
Yeah.
But I character profiles are something that I've started to look into, and it just I felt like you that's something that you did just because your characters felt very detailed.
Well, some other folks have pointed out, and I agree with. I think the way that I approach writing creatively or writing fantasy novels is parallel to but different from my day job as a scientist, because that's very technical writing. So grants, scientific papers, there's a format that's established and it's very logical, A, B, C, D.
Mm.
And creative writing is a completely different animal. So it was very, very hard to me to start. So trying to add some of those structural elements from technical writing over to creative writing has helped with that. And so again, character profile adjacent, organization, plot organization, very structured outlining, and then we can kind of get into the craft of how people are actually doing it. So maybe you can share, if you're a plotter or a pantser. I'm 100% outliner, and I have to know what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it before I can even write the first sentence.
See, I'm a little bit of both. I have
Okay.
an entire outline of the trilogy that I'm writing, which has gone through like 5 different changes at this point, but I have an entire outline of it. And while writing the first book, I've outlined the first book, and I will set aside what I want from each chapter, and I will sit and start writing, and I'll see where the characters take me, and depending on where they go, I'll compare notes and be like, acceptable, I'll keep it, or nah, let's redo this. It really just depends. I kind of just I would that be a pantser, I guess?
But I mean,
It's
it
a
seems kind
mix.
of it seems hybrid, right? Because you've got
Yeah.
kind of an idea of the structure, but then, like you
Yeah.
say, that idea or that concept of what people say, I'm going to write and see where the characters take me. That to me, I think is fascinating because I can't do that at all.
I didn't think I could until I sat down. I was like, let me just try this out. And I didn't have a plan and I just went with it. And the first time it happened, I was like, my characters literally just had a conversation where I was POVing, mediating, sure.
Yeah,
It was a really cool experience. And while it's nice to stick to like plans, and I stick hard to like the foundation of the skeleton of the book, it's nice to have these deviations when they happen just to see like, oh, so it's vibing. Okay, I
yeah.
enjoy this.
I think this is super fascinating. So when you're doing that, what do you think is the, I don't want to call it success rate, but like the conversations or the directions that you keep versus the directions where you're like, nope, I gotta redirect.
It depends because I do the stupid thing of editing while I write, and I
Mm.
try not to do that. I'm like, no, let's just have a shitty first draft and we will deal with it when the time comes to edit. But no, my brain will not let that go. So it depends because I will go in and fine tune the deviation to the point where it's fine
Okay,
instead
all
of
right.
scrapping it all together.
Yeah,
Scrapping it all together, I've only had to do it like a handful of times in the recent times that I've been working on my book. It's more of fine tuning and shaping and all that
yeah.
fun stuff.
I like talking this kind of shop talk with other authors, because for me, it's with the kind of the scientist brain I've got. It's draft one, bash your way all the way through to the end, hit the return button, go all the way to. So it's
Yeah.
when the write and revise, that little loop back.
Yeah.
Again, that's super hard for me, but for me just to kind of just push that rock all the way up to the top of the hill, let it roll back down, and then push it back up again. That works
Yeah.
for me, at least for the 2 books that I've written, or the 3 that I've written, 2 that I've published. That has been a method that's worked for me
That's cool.
fairly well.
Trying really hard to not edit. I have friends who are helping me. I have a little team of three that are very close to my heart. Are helping me with this whole creative process, and I've been torn between asking them to go with me as I write and help me as I go with like just the editing, so I can brainstorm like while I edit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Foundation's fixed, and I can keep building the house
Totally.
from there. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's just
how is the house changed? Because you said this, you've been working on this for, you said 14
oh,
years,
so this
right?
this was a Lord of the Rings fan fiction.
Right, but when did you start it? You said it was like many years ago.
I was 14 years old,
Oh, yeah.
and it was. Lord of the Rings fan fiction,
So did
and
it start as a hobbit hole and now it's a hobbit mansion? Has things have expanded or changed, or
oh
so
yeah,
it's
no,
yeah,
it was just a story where I put myself into like date Legolas, and then I was
yeah.
no, okay, maybe I like this story, so I wrote like a 50-page thing. Then I was like, maybe it should be a three-parter, and then I started to figure out this three-parter, and then life happened, and I didn't touch it for like a good 5 years. I thought I lost it, and then I found it, and I started crying out of happiness. And then I've just been poking it, but I've been really like chiseling at it for the last few months only. And I'm dead set, like I'm going to have this thing drafted by I was planning October. Won't be October. I'm just gonna say end of year.
End of year, sure.
It's just life is busy. I'm a mom. I have a
Yeah.
full-time job other than this. It's just a lot.
I understand completely, and I have a different, but I guess a similar or an adjacent type story. So I didn't start. I got my first rejection letter when I was 11
Um,
for a short story, and been collecting rejection letters ever since. And then when I started doing all of my PhD scientist type stuff, I stopped writing creatively for maybe 20 years. But then two things changed. I got a big promotion at my scientist job, and my first child was born. And so then when I was doing childcare stuff, we had read all of the books we had been given for gifts. I'd read through all of the books that I had gotten that we had bought ourselves. So I just started making up stuff, just kind of talking to her. And then I thought, well, man, this thing that I'm telling you now sounds kind of like one of my old short stories I got rejected. What else can I mine? So I went back to my old writing journal and looked through some stuff. And I said, oh, this is kind of a neat idea. Well, what if I added some bits in? And that idea of what if I add some bits in kept spinning as I was going through all of this childcare. And that actually turned into a couple paragraphs, chapters, and it kept
awesome.
ballooning out. And through refinements and cycles, that actually turned into the path from regret. So it's that idea of once you kind of commit, make that mental commit, just like you were talking about,
Yeah.
it snowballs pretty easy. And so that was actually kind of a neat thing. Like something just clicked and said, all right, I've got enough here that I can make this be not just a short story, but a novel. And I am going to do this. And that feeling of I'm going to do this is a
Yeah.
really cool feeling.
Yeah, and like doing it, like my favorite thing to do is I'll go sit at Starbucks for like 2 to 3 hours and I'll sit there, put in my headphones and I'll listen to Lord of the Rings lo-fi, I know. And I'll just sit there and write and I like going there because if I write at home, I'll do everything else I need to do except write. So going out forces me to write and it forces it to be focus time. And it's
Absolutely.
just so nice because everything flows when you're in it. You know what I mean? When you're in that zone.
And I know exactly what you mean when you say you put the headphones in and you listen to, you said Lord of the Rings lo-fi. So
I do.
I really
Yeah.
like the Chilled Cow Lo-Fi Girl.
Yeah, yeah.
So I listen to that constantly
So
when
cool.
I write. So when I write, it's always to music and it's always instrumental. So I'm going to say 60% of the time, it's kind of like the Lo-Fi Girl type stuff. I
Yeah.
find a lot of things on Bandcamp. So for a while, I've been listening to a lot of instrumental rock music or instrumental guitar music. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling fancy, I'll put on some classical music like
That's
Vivaldi's Four
cool.
Seasons or something.
That's
But a lot of time, yeah, lo-fi hip hop beats, chip tune type stuff. Yeah, do a lot of writing to that. So when you say you were doing Lord of the Rings lo-fi, that
yeah.
I get it
I
absolutely.
do I go between two playlists, the Lord of the Rings lo-fi like thing on Spotify, or I made a playlist for my book and it's Lindsey Sterling
Yep.
and like just Lord of the Rings soundtrack because that's what I used to write to and like when I was younger. Uh, I was obsessed. That was such a gateway. Thanks, Mom. Music really helps. Really,
Yes.
really helps in that sense, especially if it
Absolutely.
vibes with what you're writing.
Yeah. And that, what I think is interesting is a lot of people do the playlist and they write music for a scene to have a particular feel.
Yeah, yeah,
I use it as more like pump up music that you get for the gym, where it's like it's a consistent thing that gives
that's
you
what I use it
the
for.
energy and the motivation. So I'm not necessarily using it as a fill in soundtrack, but as a this is going to keep driving me
Yeah.
forward. And that's why I like the lo-fi or the rock music, because there's a consistent tempo and it doesn't fluctuate or dip. So it's not quite zone out, but it gives that same consistent energy all the way through.
Yeah, no, I listen for the same reason. It's the let's go, let's go, let's go, writing juice, get this
Yep.
going. Like, yeah, no, it's the same way, same thing.
Um, well, you mentioned something about kind of gateway books and Lord of the Rings being the big gateway books for you in terms of kind of fantasy. What would you say like your big two or three? I mean, aside from Lord of the Rings, what would you say like your big one or two is like this is what got me to be excited about fantasy stuff? Because I certainly have my top three, and
Yeah.
I can list them off like nothing. But I'm curious what yours are.
So one of so I'm originally from Brazil, and when I moved to the US, I was 12. And it took a lot for me to learn English because I didn't know it much. My mom was an English teacher for a little bit, so I knew a little bit of the basic, but could not carry a conversation. So, learning to read and going through the process of picking out books and finding out what I liked. I really liked The Two Princesses of Bamare. I forget who it's from, and I feel horrible about it. She's an awesome writer, but The Two Princesses of Bamare has always been one of my favorite books that I'm actually trying to get my daughters to read. Um, I've also I know you said to not include Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings it wasn't even the books, it was the movies. It was my mom seeing the trailer for I think we went to the mall and the movie theater was there. She was like, "Oh, everybody when you start school would have seen that Lord of the Rings movie. Why don't we go watch it and then you have something to talk about at school?" So we went, and then the moment Bilbo goes, "Ah," to get the ring, she and my sister left the theater and it was just me and my dad. But anyway, Lord of the Rings was huge for me. And then unfortunately, Harry Potter got me into fantasy and a lot into fan fiction writing as well. I used to write a lot of fan fiction for that and for X-Men too. Just those. I didn't really branch out. I didn't really get to really start reading until recently, really. Like I've just for the past year I've gotten back into reading and I can't even tell you how many books I've read. It's been an insane amount and it's been both indie and big what's the term? Big publishing, big
Yeah,
pub
like the traditional the big five. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't care what it is. If it's a book and it's something with words that I can read, I've been trying to read it. And what about you? What was your gateway to fantasy?
Well, it's,
It's a hell of a drug.
so when I kind of give this anecdote, it's always kind of stages of my life when I was like little boy, adolescent, you know, older boy. Um, when I was when I was young, the book that really still sticks with me is a book called Dragon's Blood by Jane Yule. And so she's a children's author. She's written hundreds of children's books, but this was science fantasy. So it was both science fiction and fantasy crammed together. So it was basically about gladiatorial fights between dragons on a backwater planet that no one visits. And the story it has like a caste system where there's indentured servants and they manage the dragons that do the pit fighting. And it's a story of one of these indentured servants that steals a dragon egg to raise a dragon in secret to enter in these fights to win his freedom. And so that really got me focused in on, wow, dragons are awesome, and you can have science fiction and fantasy because it's got dragons and there's these gladiatorial fights, but then every once in a while a spaceship comes in and guys with laser guns bet on these fights, and it was just something I'd never read before. So that I thought was really, really cool. So that was kind of the initial gateway.
Mhm.
Then when I became the moody teenager, I found Dragonlance and reading the Dragonlance Chronicles by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. And I immediately gravitated towards the wizard, Race Limagir. And so read any of the side stories about him. So that was kind of the teenage years. And then actually when I was in graduate school getting my PhD, a friend of mine was a very well-read sci-fi aficionado. And he got me introduced to an author named Ian Banks,
Uh-huh.
and he does epic space opera. And the series he's best known for is called The Culture, and it is this utopian anarchy, if you can put those two ideas together,
Uh-huh.
where the society is run by these benevolent but super powerful AI starships. And the ability of technology and what's possible is infinite. It's a post-scarcity society. You can pretty much do anything you want at any time. So what do humans do? And those ideas, I'd read these Ian Banks books, just kind of put the book down after a chapter because I needed that time just to process this
Right.
idea of freedom so vast, nothing is beyond you. And I still grapple with that every once in a while. But those were the big kind of three authors or three kind of series that always makes me smile when I think about science fiction and fantasy because it's the biggest canvas for stories to be told.
Right. No, that's cool. That's awesome. I've I'm big into science fiction, just not book wise, like media wise. Like I've been my dad got me into Stargate when I was 5.
Kind of talk about what was your gateway
One.
series for stuff. For me, it was Star Trek: The Next Generation. Watched that all growing up, and
Yes.
so
My
you know,
dad.
is it okay? So that watched all those growing up when they were on prime time. Bought all the DVDs. I am 100% Captain Picard till
Yes.
till I die
Yes.
as the best
Same.
captain. And I
Same.
so yeah.
No, no. Next Generation was me and dad thing. Star Wars too. Like Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate. It was a trifecta.
Yeah, I've never gotten into Stargate, and it's funny when I was much younger, was really into Star Wars just because I loved everything about Jedi and lightsabers, and I'm still the little boy then, still love lightsabers, but as I've gotten older, and I like that Star Trek has more sophisticated politics and character
Yeah.
arcs and kind of philosophical
Yes.
uh, things woven into it. That's
Yeah.
not to say Star Wars doesn't, but it's
Oh,
much more
yeah.
on the surface and much more deeply woven into the narratives,
Very much.
especially in the next generation type stuff. So that's why I really like those types of things. I like Picard because he's the cerebral captain.
Yeah.
He's always trying to maximize the benefit for everything he's doing. He commands the respect of his crew. People want to follow him, and I just think Patrick Stewart's a phenomenal actor. So I think those are all, the
He
reason I
gets to
think
hang
that's
out with
great.
Riker, and Riker's
Yes, yeah,
the best. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
and-
So yeah, I mean, and Michael Dorn and LeVar
yes.
Burton. In terms of like supporting characters, there's just
That's
they've
just
got really cool stuff.
inspiration.
So,
It's just too
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I like DS9 is also another one of my favorites. I really like Deep Space Nine. Truly, truly enjoy it. And then Discovery, of course, and Strange New Worlds. I really enjoy those too. But it's just something about Next Generation. I don't know if it was
Mhm.
because it was the introduction to it.
Well, it might be the insertion point because it's always,
Yeah.
just really kind of jumping
Yeah.
media. Like I always think of people think that Final Fantasy VII is the best Final Fantasy because
It's
that's the
10.
first one.
It's 10. Sorry.
It's nine. It's
It's
not.
10. I will fight you. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not fight. It's
No, no,
okay.
no, no. But it's funny. It's usually which is the one you played first, and so I played nine first, and so that's the one that I love the most. I've gone back and played all of them up until 12. After that, I kind of dropped off. So I played 1 through 12, but for nine is for some reason that always gets me. But I got a feeling it's because it was the first one I played.
You know what? I think I can't remember if it was 10 or Tactics that I played first. Anyway, back to your book.
Yes, yes.
I love it. I love chats like this. This is the best thing ever. Before, I was looking at my question list and we've hit every single one of them. So there is this one that I like to close out interviews with. That is,
Sure.
I just enjoy it. If you could describe your book with 3 words, they don't have to be like a sentence, they can just be 3 different words. What would you pick for your book?
If I
For
had
the
to pick,
magic of deceit.
wizards are awesome.
Wizards are awesome. Yes.
And to be honest, that is what a personal goal. So there's lots of themes in the magic of deceit and the path from regret. But what my goal is as the writer, I want to write a story where people are done. I have given them the same feeling that those books I talked about, Dragon's Blood, Dragonlance, the culture. When I got done reading those books, I thought, dragons are awesome, wizards are awesome, the future will be awesome. I want to give that idea, or I want to give that feeling to people when they get done reading the book. If I've done my job well, they'll put that down and say, yeah, wizards are pretty awesome. They should be
Yeah.
main characters more often. So those would be the three words that I would hope people would pick up.
That's
So
fair. They that checks out. I approve those. But thank you so much for spending time with us and just chatting about your book and about everything else. It was so much fun.
absolutely, this was super fun.
Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.